I've said this before. This trade war that Donald Trump is pursuing is easily the most dumbest trade war in history. So, for example, you've just seen, just well, just yesterday, the whole 25% tariff on cars. Now, for us here in the UK, we sell very little in the way of cars to the US. Tends to be very much high-end cars that we sell. So while it will affect us, at the end of the day, it just means that those very expensive cars that we sell to very wealthy Americans just going to get a little bit more expensive. So not the, shall we say, the biggest problem probably for UK car manufacturers on that end. However, remember, we have seen, certainly over here in the UK with Brexit, just-in-time delivery systems that you see engine parts, car parts flying all over Europe. Well, it's the exact same in the US. Parts fly between the US, Canada, Mexico, all over the place before they are again finally all finished and assembled into the final car. With this alone, you could potentially see car parts being hit with like 25% tariffs if it just goes between like Mexico and Canada. So you are looking on some of this stuff like 45 maybe percent, maybe even 50. So it's absolutely insane to pursue this as an idea. And you've already seen the stocks in car companies take a massive dash because of this. And they're like, what's he doing? However, it was only really a matter of time, I think, before Trump would do something even more silly. So this story really goes to show you how interconnected and how much countries do rely on trade. Like, this is like the perfect, like almost classic example, but you are going to see huge problems with this almost instantly. And yeah, it's not going to be good. I think a lot of Americans might suddenly become very upset. So before we get on into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and of course subscribe button down below. Of course, there are links to my Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there is the Pony Club down below as well. So what shall we say has Trump tariffed? Well, he has now put a 25% tariff going up to 50% potentially on Canadian softwood products. And guess what? This product, or should we say this softwood, goes into a lot of toilet paper, kitchen paper, especially the toilet paper. Oh boy. You could see, as we'll see in a moment, toilet paper shortages that you have probably not seen since the pandemic about to suddenly start happening. So let's go on over into this. This is covered in the Financial Post on this. So the Trump tariffs on Canadian lumber risk toilet paper supply. So Trump's proposed now tariffs on the soft lumber risk now disrupting the supply chain for something that nobody wants to be caught out with: toilet paper. The Trump administration now plans to double duties on Canadian soft lumber to 27%, with even the possibility of additional levies pushing that to more than 50%. And while Trump's advocates for the new tariffs to try and bolster US manufacturing, they may now be hit with the availability of the Northern Bleached Softwood or Kraft Pulp, or NBSK, a very key component in making toilet paper and paper towels. NBSK constitutes at least 30% of the standard US bathroom tissue and over half now of that typical in a paper towel. It is currently primary sourced from Canada, said Brian McKay, the chairman of TOMBA, which tracks the global pulp market. He added that the US imported about 2 million tons from Canada just last year, highlighting now the very long-standing reliance of American paper goods producers on the pulp now from their northern neighbor. He said some of these mills in the US, some of them are big brand products, but nobody wants that only, of course, only want softwood pulp from Canada. They want that softwood pulp from this particular mill. They've been using it for over 13 years, for over 30 plus years, and they will not change, he said. If Canadian pulp mills close because they don't have the fiber supply, I can't think of any other option for them. They just can't switch the recipe around, he said. This scenario risks reviving all these painful memories of the pandemic era toilet paper shortages, where store shelves were stripped bare amid panic buying. Another possibility will result in, of course, higher prices at the checkout counter. Yeah, this is ultimately going to happen. I think you're going to see this happen pretty quickly. But we are going to see toilet paper shortages. We are going to see toilet paper shortages, and it's just like like I say, I keep on saying it's the dumbest trade war in history. And just keeps adding all the stupid parts. And this time, there's no adults in the room. We keep on saying this. Last time, we are actually seeing fully unfettered Trump of what many of us expected the chaos would be like of his first term would expect it to be. But there were adults in the room. They were able to at least push pause. They were able to like mitigate some of the worst aspects of this stuff. This time, there's no adults in the room. So we are seeing the full unfettered Trump. It makes you think the Trump first term could have been even infinitely worse. Infinitely worse. So anyway, let's get back to this. Trump has, of course, long promoted that tariffs would be his tool to bring back manufacturing to the US. He's repeatedly said that his country doesn't need Canadian lumber, but that stance, of course, does not account for the very specific qualities of Canadian softwood pulp, which the industry executives say that they cannot now easily be substituted with American alternatives, as the pulp is now prized for its very tensile strength. They don't buy our products for our pretty eyes, said Frederick Welts, the vice president of corporate affairs for Les Canadiens du Chambert de Thé, a Quebec wood producer. They said they buy our products because they are the best and the most integrated into their factories. This tariffs also risks now sparking a cascading effect on other supply chains. Higher lumber costs may also now lead to reduced construction activity, resulting now in fewer trees being harvested and consequently now a diminished supply of wood chips needed to, of course, pulp production. This shortage would now potentially even drive up even more production costs for tissue manufacturers and also lead to more supply constraints. So, yeah, it just doesn't stop. Just doesn't stop. And there's, like I say, last time there's no one here to stop him this time, because the guy he's got in this time is like full on board. Oh yeah, you do all these tariffs, it'll make it all perfect. Anyway, this import tax, of course, on lumber. If the imports tax on lumber do exceed 50%, as they are currently on track to, that is going to put some sawmills out of business. And then that will reduce the supply of the wood chips, Mr. Clay said. Because then we don't really need to cut trees for making pulp in Canada. We depend on residual chips from all the sawmills. It would certainly boost the cost and, of course, probably reduce the probability of output. Sawmills are, of course, very difficult to actually adjust, so they typically either run now on full tilt or just not at all, said Jean Francois-Sammy, head of the Quebec Forest Industrial Council. It's like pipelines, it's like power grids. It's a full or all empty, he said. The softwood industry operates in a pure and perfect competition market, he said. So in a market like that, there will be, of course, temporary closures. It will reduce production and will have an effect on the continual supply and demand. John Laveri, vice president of the government affairs for the American Forest and Paper Association, said that these tariffs could very well disrupt our complex cross-border supply chains, and the industry cannot even predict the outcomes should they go into full effect. So, yeah. Hey, if you're in America, start stockpiling now. Amid, of course, all these very long-running trade disputes, the US now is currently applying duties totaling at least more than 14% currently on Canadian lumber. One of them now is set to increase this year, taking the cumulative effect to almost 27%. According to the US Department for Commerce, the proposal from the White House starting a 25% tariff on many other Canadian goods would now mean importing the total taxes to about 52%. And that is even before the conclusion of the Trump ordered investigation into the national security concerns around lumber imports, which could now mean even more tariffs. So they're not even finished yet. They're not even finished yet on this. Like, I'm glad I'm not American. I'm glad I'm not American because I don't know how you would honestly explain this. I'm reading about it and I generally don't understand the logic or anything behind it when it is going to have such a detrimental effect on your supply chains. Anyway, and of course, as we've mentioned before, the April 2nd delay in applying all these 25% tariffs on goods covered under this trade deal with Canada is, of course, due to expire. The very same day, Trump has now pledged to unveil more sweeping additional tariffs to make US trade with other countries around the world reciprocal. Like I say, get ready for April 2nd. We are now, what, less than a week away? Yes, next week indeed. Next Wednesday. We'll find out what those are, but I'm expecting tariffs on us. I'm expecting tariffs on the EU, quite frankly. This escalating now when trade tensions has left many industry giants such as Domata Corp, which makes pulp and paper products on both sides of the border, now watching very closely. Free trade between Canada and the US does benefit consumers, said Andrew Kellick, the company spokesperson. And yeah, wild. Absolutely wild. Like how do you even explain this? Like, if you like seriously voted for Trump, how do you square this away in your mind? And when we start to see, these shortages of toilet paper, which we inevitably I think will, then what? Not only that, you're gonna have those tariffs that come in on April 2nd. That's gonna hurt even more of America. Sure, it's gonna have an impact on us in some way, shape, or form. But so far, from what we've seen of these tariffs, it's going to affect American consumers a heck of a lot more, than that. I remember Americans literally voted for Trump because he promised to bring down the prices of typical household goods. This is not how you do that. This is not how you do that. But okay, we wait to watch the inevitable run on toilet paper, and of course, we await to find out next week what all these new tariffs are going to be. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.